My job is to restore forgotten films, but I should have let this one rot. It was a 3-minute silent movie of a woman whose stillness was unnatural, whose beauty was a prison. And that film wasn't just a recording. It was a cage, and by pressing play, I had just become its new warden. There's a junk sickness that gets into the blood of men like me. We're the archivists, the collectors, the guys who spend their weekends sifting through the detritus of dead people's lives at crumbling estate sales. We're not looking for treasure, not really. We're looking for forgotten stories. Most of the time, we find nothing but moth-eaten clothes and chipped porcelain. But sometimes you find a story that wants to be remembered. And God help you when you do. My name is Frank. I'm 48, divorced, and my apartment smells like decaying paper and developing chemicals. I specialize in restoring antique film and photograph. It's a lonely job, but it's mine. The find that broke my life happened on a gray Saturday in October, at the estate of a man named Alistair Finch. The house was a recluse's paradise on the coast of Maine, smelling of salt and secrets. Finch had been a collector of everything: taxidermy, medical oddities, and, most importantly for me, unlabeled film canisters. I bought a whole crate of them for $50. Most were corroded beyond saving. Family vacations from the 50s, local newsreels, the usual chaff. But one was different. It was a small, 8mm canister, heavier than it should be, sealed with yellowed surgical tape. There was no label. Just a single, faded word scrawled in ink on the lid: Ancora. Italian for anchor, or still. A strange name. Back in my workshop, the hum of my machines was a familiar comfort. I carefully pried the canister open. The film inside was pristine, as if it had been sealed yesterday. It was short, maybe 3 minutes long. I threaded it into my vintage Steinbeck viewer, the gentle clatter of the machine filling the silence. I killed the lights. What I saw wasn't a home movie. It was art. Stark, unsettling, and beautiful. The film was black and white, shot with a static camera in what looked like a bare, white room. In the center stood a young woman, probably in her early 20s. She was strikingly beautiful in a fragile, ethereal way, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that seemed to absorb the light. She wore a simple, sleeveless black dress. The film quality was superb, every detail sharp and clear. There was no sound, of course. For the first 2 minutes, she simply stood there, perfectly still. Not just holding a pose. It was an unnatural, absolute stillness, like a photograph that had come to life by mistake. You could see the subtle rise and fall of her chest, but nothing else moved. Not a finger, not a hair, not an eyelid. She didn't blink. Not once. Then, at the 2-minute mark, she began to move. It wasn't a dance. It was more like a sequence of broken, angular gestures. She'd raise an arm slowly, hold it at an impossible angle for 10 seconds, then let it drop. She'd turn her head with a chilling, mechanical slowness. Her movements were precise, deliberate, and utterly devoid of emotion. Her face remained a blank, beautiful mask. Her eyes, her dark, unblinking eyes, were fixed on the camera. Or rather, on the person behind it. But it was the ending that burrowed into my brain. The final 10 seconds. Her strange, ritualistic movements stopped. She stood perfectly still again, facing the camera. And then, for the first time, her expression changed. The blank mask shattered. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened in a silent scream. It wasn't acting. I've watched 1,000 actors in my life. This was not a performance. This was raw, undiluted terror. She was looking at the cameraman with an expression of pure, animal panic. Then the film cut to black. Just gone. Frame 312 was her face, contorted in fear. Frame 313 was darkness. I sat there in the dark for a long time, the afterimage of her face burned into my retinas. Who was she? Who was the filmmaker who could elicit such a genuine, horrifying reaction? The canister's single word, Ancora, echoed in my head. My professional curiosity quickly curdled into obsession. I spent the next week digging into Alistair Finch, the dead collector. He was old money, a complete hermit for the last 40 years of his life. I found his papers, boxes of them, sold to a local university library. I pulled strings, called in favors. I spent days poring over his ledgers and journals. Most of it was nonsense. Manic scribblings about ley lines and celestial alignment. Finch was deep into the occult. But buried in a dusty folio, I found a series of letters from the 1960s, exchanged with a man named Julian Carras. Carras was an experimental filmmaker from New York, a shadowy figure from the avant-garde scene who had vanished abruptly in 1968. The letters were about his new process. Julian, one of Finch's letters read, "The theories you propose are dangerous. To use celluloid not merely as a medium for light, but as a vessel for what you call essential resonance, it defies all known metaphysical laws. You are not capturing a performance. You are attempting to capture a soul." Carras's reply was chillingly confident. "Alistair, you lack vision. The ancients used clay jars and carved idols. I use silver halide and projected light. The camera is the ultimate magical instrument. It sees, it records, and it ancora. The anchor." My blood ran cold. This wasn't a film. It was the result of a ritual. Carras wasn't a director. He was a sorcerer. He hadn't just filmed that poor girl, Elena. He had trapped her. That final, silent scream wasn't her acting a part. It was the moment she realized the camera wasn't just looking at her. It was consuming her. That night, the nightmares started. I was in the White Room. I could feel the heat of the studio lights on my skin. I could smell the ozone from the camera's motor. And I could see her, Elena, standing before me. But when I looked down, my hands weren't my own. They were long, slender, artistic hands, and they were gripping the side of an old Arriflex camera. I was Carras, and I felt a surge of triumphant, possessive love as I watched her, my perfect, eternal creation. I would wake up sweating, the hum of the non-existent camera motor still buzzing in my ears. Things in my apartment began to move. I'd come home from a walk to find my books on the floor, arranged in a sharp, angular pattern, mimicking one of her gestures from the film. I started seeing her in reflections. A dark-haired woman in a simple black dress, standing perfectly still in the reflection of a darkened TV screen or a storefront window. When I'd turn, there would be nothing there. I stopped sleeping. I just watched the film. Over and over. I had to understand. I had to find a flaw in the ritual. I became convinced that if I watched it enough, I could somehow set her free. The academic interest was gone. Now it was a rescue mission. I felt a profound, aching pity for her. A need to save her. That was my mistake. The final piece of the puzzle came from Finch's last journal entry, written the day before he died of a supposed heart attack. He was a fool. Carras succeeded, but he didn't understand the cost. The vessel is unstable. The trapped spirit thrashes against its cage. It requires a warden, an observer. The focused attention of a single mind acts as the lock on the cell door. Carras was the first. He watched the film every day until it drove him mad. When he died, the curse, I dropped the journal. The hum in my workshop seemed to grow louder, the air colder. I looked at my Steinbeck viewer on the workbench. It was off, but from its small, internal speaker I could hear a sound. A faint, rhythmic clicking. Click, click, click. It was the sound of the film advancing, frame by frame. I stumbled toward the door, my mind screaming, "Get out! Destroy the film! Burn it! Burn the whole goddamn building down!" But a wave of emotion washed over me, so powerful it buckled my knees. It wasn't my own. It was a cocktail of Carras's possessive pride and a deep, soul-crushing sorrow that I knew belonged to Elena. And underneath it all was Finch's bone-deep weariness, the exhaustion of a 40-year watch. I felt a sudden, crushing sense of responsibility, of duty. I turned back to the workbench. The clicking had stopped. The room was silent. I knew then what I had to do, what I had been chosen to do. I don't go out much anymore. The world outside seems loud and pointless. My work is here. The collector's vast fortune, it turned out, was left to whoever appreciated his collection. My purchase of the film was the only receipt his lawyer could find. I inherited everything. The house in Maine, the money, the burden. I watch the film every night. It's a ritual. I thread the celluloid, kill the lights, and I watch her. I watch her perfect, horrifying stillness. I watch her broken, mechanical dance. And I brace myself for frame 312. I watch her silent scream, and I focus all of my will, all of my pity, all of my obsession onto that image. I am the anchor. I am the lock on her cell. Sometimes, when I'm weak from lack of sleep, I think I see her expression flicker. A hint of gratitude, a glimmer of recognition. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the story I tell myself to make the nights bearable. Because I know the truth. I'm not saving her. I'm just another man who fell in love with a beautiful tragedy. I am not her savior. I am her jailer. And this is my life sentence.